Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming tonight to our Sunday feast. You can now all turn and face this seat, and we'll have a talk from 6 until 7 p.m. And tonight's talk will be given by Dravida Dasa Brahmachari Prabhu. Almost all of you know Dravida Prabhu, but because some may be here for the first time, or some are here for the first time, I'll at least say that Dravida Prabhu is a Brahmachari monk who's been practicing Krishna consciousness since the early 70s. I think 1972, is that right, when you got initiated? Okay. Started practicing in 73, took initiation formally as a student of Srila Prabhupada in 1974. And so he's been practicing and sharing Krishna consciousness for over 50 years now. And some of you know that today's a special day for him. We'll discuss that later. And so tonight he'll give the talk. He gives Bhagavad Gita class every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night at 7:15 p.m. He also gives class every Monday morning at 7:45 a.m. So thank you, Dravida Prabhu. Hare Krishna. You don't need any book? Okay.
So most of you know this song, Jaya Radha Madhava. Okay. So we'll sing a little bit of that. That's Prabhupada's tradition. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So you'll have to excuse me a little bit because I just turned 77 and I've been chanting like that, like you just heard, for 50 years. My voice is not as strong as it used to be. So I hope I don't run out of gas. And we had a nice program last night, Kirtan, and we had Harinam Kirtan here on the street, which I led for a good portion of the time, but I think I'll be all right. So I was asked to speak on Lord Jagannath. And that's like asking to speak on Krishna. It's a big topic. So I'm going to speak a little bit about Lord Jagannatha. First of all, there was this wonderful book that was written by Tamal Krishna Maharaj back in 1985, and it was a play that he wrote according to Natya Shastra, according to the rules of Sanskrit plays that Rupa Goswami had observed and studied in writing his plays. Rupa Goswami is the prime disciple of Lord Chaitanya, one of the 6 Goswamis. He wrote a book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada translated as the Nectar of Devotion, which many of you may be familiar with. It's the book that gives a detailed of who is Krishna and who are his devotees, what the relationship is, what the process of devotional service is, and what the goal of devotional service is. And the final, very important book, it's available on our store, Nectar of Devotion. So, and he wrote these wonderful plays, Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, and they're all about Krishna and his relationship with his intimate devotees, the cowherd boys, the cowherd girls, his parents, and all these different things. Beautiful, beautiful Sanskrit. So Tamal Krishna was inspired. He was actually a very important member of the Krishna consciousness movement in the early days. Srila Prabhupada relied on him for very responsible posts, such as being the first GBC of all of India, which you can imagine how important that was. And he contributed a tremendous amount to the growth and the founding of this movement. So this Jagannath Priya Natakam means a play. Natakam is a play about Jagannath and his dear devotees, Jagannath Priya Natakam. And I had the great opportunity of editing that. I've been doing that work for the last 50 years. That's basically my service, BBT. And he asked me to go through it and work on it, and I did. And it's very inspiring. And I was looking at it again. It's hard to get now. It's kind of out of print. But if you want it, you can get it from me. Because when I worked on it, eventually when the book was printed, I'm not sure why I did this, but I took photographs of each page. You can't get the whole book on the line anymore. It's not available. But it's readable. You can read it in PDF format. I put it in, so just write to me at dravida108@gmail.com. And I'm going to send you my poems too, as a bonus. So in this book, he describes how the Jagannath deity came to be. Now the Jagannath deity and the Jagannath temple in Jagannath Puri is thousands and thousands of years old, more than 5,000 years old. And there was a king named Indrajumna who was a great devotee, and he was very instrumental in the manifestation of the Jagannath deity. So I'll try to remember it. I was reading through the play today, and this Indrajumna, he wanted to see Krishna face to face, and he asked his chief ministers, "Where can I go to find? Please find out where I can go to see him." And so they went, and eventually they went to this place called Niladri, which I think is now the present Nila Mountain. That's right part of Puri. And there was believe it or not, a swineherd who was worshiping Nilamadava, a deity of Nilamadava. And he had responsibility, even though he was not clean, he was a keeper of pigs, but he was got that benediction. And so Indrajumna sent out his Brahmins to find out anything, clue about where he could find the Lord, that he could see him face to face. So this Nilamadava was a very beautiful deity, and he was seen only by this one swineherd. He was hidden up in a cave somewhere, and for years he was worshiping that way, and he felt very intimately in this I forget his name now. So somehow Indrajumna, his Brahmin representative, they found that this swineherd was seeing the Lord in the form of this Nilamadava, a very beautiful deity. And eventually it got back to Indrajumna, and he went to try to see the deity. But the deity didn't want to be seen. He was gone by the time he found that cave, that place where he was, that temple in the woods. So he was very disappointed. And but it turns out that Nilamadava it wasn't that the swineherd had hidden him. He just disappeared. But because Indradyumna wanted to see the Lord so much, he was given a boon that he was able to travel to Brahmaloka. And he was promised that in a temple, if you build a temple on this blue mountain, this Niladri, then the Lord will come there and you will be able to see him. So he came down, and there was this his heart was broken, because this happens sometimes. If you go to Brahmaloka and you come down after like a day, thousands of years have passed over here. So all your wife is gone, your kids are, it's all history, you know. So he was brokenhearted. All the people, you know, now I have assurance that I'll be able to build the temple and the deity will come, but then all the people I wanted to share it with are not there, so he was brokenhearted. So, but anyway, he went on with that, and what happened was that the deity was to come as Jagannath, in a special form. And there was a log that was going to come from the ocean, you know, a special huge log that was going to be the first log that the deity was carved from. Now, I did go to Jagannath Puri, but I wasn't there during the Ratha Yatra. But I understand, and those who know can correct me, that every 12 years or so they renew the deity, right? Which means that they take the deities and they in the ocean, and then they carve new ones. But every year, of course, they renew them, they paint them. And if you're in a temple like we are here, we used to have a Ratha Yatra every year before the pandemic, and because they had, you remember they had that big festival in the park around Earth Day festival. Those who've been living here in San Diego for a while. So we were part of the whole festivities there. We integrated. We didn't have to, you know, do it separately. So that was very enlivening, you know, and we had Jagannath was there, and for a whole afternoon he would be worshipped and offered, and we had kirtan going, a book table. It was very nice. But then after that, you know, the pandemic has stopped everything. We haven't been able to have it. So this was, I think, Jagannath's first trip outside the temple. It was very nice. One of his first trips. We'll try to do more every year. So the point is that Jagannath appeared, and it was going to be carved from wood, and Vishvakarma was going to do the carving. He's the skilled architect of the heavenly planets, right? So, and the deal was that Indradyumna would be outside, and he would be carving inside the hall there. And it was a certain number of days, I forget, 2 weeks or something, he was going to carve these deities out of the first log. I don't know, maybe there were some more logs that came. But if he was interrupted, he would stop carving. You know, Indradyumna had to have patience, you know. So he said, okay, no problem, no problem. So every day he would listen to the carving going on and everything, you know. And then one day he couldn't hear the carving, you know, so he couldn't resist. He opened it. And Vishnu said, well, that's it. You know, I'm out of here. And so the deities seem to be unfinished, right? I mean, these deities have a different form than the hands, and, you know. But this was the form that they chose to take. Now, there's also another story about why they have, you know, their eyes are so wide and they're smiling like that. And that was that, some of you know this story, that was because one day, Dwarka, Krishna, and Baladev in Dwarka, and Subhadra were outside the door, and the queens were discussing the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis in Vrindavan. And they were amazed. They were startled. Their eyes just went bigger and bigger. And so these forms are in memory of those ecstatic symptoms that they were feeling, hearing these intimate pastimes, you know, the highest pastimes. So that's some of the background of how Jagannath came to be. But I'd like to also speak about how Jagannath came to America, and how Srila Prabhupada, by his wonderful efforts and against, you know, some of the wishes of the priests in Jagannath Puri, he was going to have Ratha Yatra outside of Puri, and not necessarily on the day when they had it. You know, according to, I mean, you go to Australia, it's, you know, it's below the equator, different days, you know. So the first Ratha Yatra outside of Puri was in San Francisco. San Francisco in 1967. Now, I'm not going to get in. Prabhupada had in early '67, the movement was growing, and Prabhupada was excited, and he would dance and chant, and, you know, he had a stroke, and he almost died in May of 1967. If you read the Prabhupada Lilamrita, devotees were just heartbroken. The movement had just started. There was no temple in San Francisco. It was just New York. I don't even know if they had Montreal. I think they just had that one temple. So Prabhupada had gone to San Francisco and started the temple there. You know, there was the mantra rock dance and a tremendous, it was the height of the hippie era. I often thought afterward, you know, because I was part of that, I was around, that Krishna brought Prabhupada just at that time. If he had come in the 50s, I mean, the 50s was like really backwards. There was nothing like that. And if he had come later, in the 70s, not so much LSD. The drugs had gotten harder. It wasn't peace and love and flowers in your hair at that point, you know. But in the 60s, 65, 66, 67 was the summer of love. Prabhupada was right there in San Francisco, Golden Gate Park. There's a wonderful picture of him chanting outside in the park with the devotees, and Jagannath is right there, the deity. They didn't know. They just brought the deity out from the temple. He'd already been installed, and he was sitting there next to Prabhupada. So he chanted, you know, but they said, don't bring the deities out anymore. Like that. But this is the thing. Jagannath comes out of the temple to show his blessings to everybody. This is, we don't take Radha Giridhari anywhere, you know. Don't take them out. You come to the temple. But Jagannath, he's the Lord of the universe, and he's especially merciful. In fact, I forget the Shastra, forgive me, I didn't have time to notate everything. Where it says, and Prabhupada quotes this, that if anyone, you know, whatever background, sees the Jagannath deity in procession, you know, and appreciates it, then all his karma is eradicated, you know? Yeah, just by seeing the deity pass, you know, what to speak of joining the procession and glorification. That's how merciful Jagannath is, you know, so we should take advantage. So Jagannath literally means Lord of the universe. That's what Jagannath means. And Krishna is also Jagannath. There's no question about it. He has those qualities as well. But the Jagannath is especially known, there's a wonderful article I was reading before I came inside by Vishaka Devi. Vishaka is one of the legendary members of the early movement. She's the wife of Yarubar. And you see any of these movies that they made, the videos, early movies following Srila Prabhupada? Go to YouTube and key in following Srila Prabhupada. They made they made so many videos, and they collected in the archives. And so Yarubar took the videos of Prabhupada, all of Prabhupada, and this was back in the, I think, mid-'80s or early '80s. And many of the original disciples were still around. So he went traveling, and when he saw them, he recognized now what's going on here? And so they're narrating it. You can see the thing. I remember there's a devotee named Yogeshwar. I don't know if you know him. He's also legendary. He was the original Bala Books publisher, the books for the kids, you know, in the Gurukuls. He's still active. And there was this legendary Ratha Yatra in London. I think it was 70, maybe a little later. But Prabhupada wasn't feeling well, you know. He was traveling all over the world. His health wasn't so great, so sometimes he would have to stop and rest. So they thought maybe he should just stay in India. Prabhupada, do you want to stay in India and recuperate, or do you want to go to the Ratha Yatra in London? This is the first big Ratha Yatra in London. And Prabhupada said, I'm going to the Ratha Yatra. You know, so they said, okay, he'll be able to sit on the cart, Subhadra's cart, you know, and everything. So he went to the Ratha Yatra, and he was so enlivened that he danced the whole way. The devotees were like shocked, you know. He was practically, he had to stay in bed when he was in Mayapur, but no, he's coming up. And he's dancing and chanting. And Prabhupada loved it because they came down to Trafalgar Square. You know, I've never been there. But it's, you know, the center of London, and it's a big pillar for Lord Nelson, you know. So they got a report in the newspapers, Jagannath, and the word Juggernaut comes from the British when they saw the Jagannath deities coming down in Jagannath Puri. You know, and literally a million people come and fill, you know, so wow, it's unstoppable, Juggernaut, you know. So they said, oh, it rivals Nelson's column. You know, this big, sometimes the top of, you know, could be 100 feet high, the chariot canopies. So Prabhupada was very pleased with that, you know. So this is some, you know, the history of ISKCON is really tied up also with the Ratha Yatra festival. I had the good fortune to be at a Ratha festival in '75 in San Francisco. Prabhupada came that year. And it was just wonderful, you know, seeing him on the carts and speaking and being... and there's one of these following Srila Prabhupada. You look for 1970. This was an incredible Ratha Yatra in San Francisco. Literally thousands of hippies, you know, were following the carts. And one cart broke down, you know, the Subhadra's cart, the wheel fell off or something, you know. And so, but then Narayan, he was active in building the cart. He realized that, oh, we have all this manpower. Could you please lift the cart up, you know, so we can fix the wheels? And they were able to do it. I swear to God. Incredible things happening at those times. So Jagannath Festival, which is still going on today in more and more cities all over the world, you know, and was revolutionary, you know, to bring it out of Puri, just like Jagannath comes out of the temple. So he took the whole festival out of India, and it has a tremendous effect. LA Ratha Yatra, don't miss it. If you're in town, you drive up. We have a bus that leaves from here. You know, it's very, very wonderful. It's less than parking and gas, and it goes right to the festival site, and you can participate. And then there's all of these wonderful sites. They have kirtan on stage for hours. You know, so that's a great tradition here. And I was there in '77 for the first Ratha Yatra in LA, and there's a legendary figure named Jayananda. Jayananda was a pioneer of this movement, and he was a specialist in building the carts for Ratha Yatra, especially in San Francisco. He was the president there, and he would engage all kinds of people. You know, he was such a friendly devotee and personable and ecstatic that when he asked you, can you just hold this while I knock the nail in? He said, sure. And meanwhile, while they're there doing the service, he's preaching to them. You know who became a devotee like that? Jayapataka Swami. He's from Canada. But everything was going on in San Francisco, so all kinds of pilgrims came. And it was the Summer of Love. So he was wandering around Haight-Ashbury, and he came across, and they were building, Jayananda was building the carts, you know. And so he said, hey, Prabhu, you know, can you hold it? You know how to do a hammering? I said, sure, I can help you. So, you know, 2 hours later, he heard 2 hours of Jayananda's preaching. You know, he said, okay, I'm going to check out this. And he became Jayapataka Swami. So Jayananda, now I was in L.A., Jayananda, a real watershed was the first Ratha Yatra in New York, which happened in '76. Now, I joined in New York. I was there for several years, but by that time I was living in Los Angeles. I had no money. You know, I couldn't take a plane to New York to be in the Ratha Yatra. So I missed the Ratha Yatra. But you know, I know a lot about it from the accounts and the films and the things. So first of all, this is a fact that may make your jaw drop. So just make sure you're not, you know, this. When they had to build the carts, you know, they always have to build the carts. So where to build the carts in New York? You know, every square inch of land is like owned, and you know it's occupied. Have you ever been to Manhattan? You know, you're not going to find an open, vacant lot anywhere. So somehow or other, they came in contact with this architect builder, you know, a real estate guy, and he owned some land that had been part of a station of one of the subways, but it was not in use. So the land above the subway was now vacant. He owned it, but it wasn't using it. So they brought him a lot of prasadam and everything, and they asked him, can we use the land? And he agreed. You know who that was? Donald Trump. Yes. Where do you think he got the karma to get where he is right now? No, I'm just making a joke there. I don't know, you know, how that connects with the present, but that's a fact. That is a fact. So building those carts was a whole adventure, you know. And but so many devotees flew in. I lived in that building for a couple of years. There were a lot of stories, plenty of room, you know, so they had a lot of guests. And so Jayananda had his whole crew, you know. But what happened was, on the Friday night, I think it was before the Sunday, they always hold them on Sunday, all the carts were built, but a big gust of wind blew off of the Hudson River, or maybe it was the East River, I don't know. And blew down the whole canopy and everything for Balaram's cart. So Jayananda said, oh, we're going to have two carts. We just can't have another cart because there's no time, to rebuild this, But there's a devotee named Maheshwar who's still active. He lives up in Ojai, and he's got a center up there. And he told a story when I was visiting Alachua. He came there and told this whole story, how he asked Jayananda, can I try to repair it, The son said, okay, but you got to get your own crew, So he went into the temple. There were plenty of guys who weren't being used, so he got a crew together. And somehow or other, he found the place where they had brought the scaffolding for it and everything. Saturday, he was able to get it and work for 18 hours straight, and they were able to repair that cart. And they had the Balaram's cart. So Prabhupada was there, and it was very, wasn't symbolic, but very indicative. He'd started the movement 10 years earlier in New York, going here and there. He was uptown. If you read the account, he really didn't make any headway for about a year. But then when he came downtown, which is the heart of the hippie, activity, the East Village and the West Village also, and who was sympathetic and active? Allen Ginsberg. Even today, you probably know the name, right? Famous poet, yes. He had come back from India. He visited India, and what was he doing? He didn't know anything, but he liked the Hare Krishna mantra. He didn't even know what it meant or what he was doing, but he liked chanting it. And when he heard Prabhupada was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, he said, oh, really, And he gave Prabhupada his first harmonium in America. Where's he going to get a harmonium, Got the harmonium. And then for the first record, some of you may have heard it. Prabhupada has an address on there, a very famous, he wanted to make a record. There was this fellow who was making records, not just ordinary music, but people speaking. He had a record that was JFK, talking and all this stuff. So he wanted to make a record of Prabhupada, because Prabhupada had an article in the New York Times. Swami's flock, he goes, makes him in ecstasy, raises him in ecstasy, and there's a picture of them, dancing in the park in Tompkins Square Park. So Prabhupada said, yes, we'll make a record. But he hadn't any drum. He just had this little half a bongo drum. What are you going to do? So the night before the record, this boy walks into the storefront, not with a mridanga, but with another two-headed drum, Indian drum. There's several other drums like that. And Prabhupada's eyes lit up, Whoa, let me see the drum, And Prabhupada started playing that drum with tremendous expertise. He was trained as a boy how to play. His father was a great devotee, trained him up, And the devotees said, oh, this is just another miracle of Swamiji. How great are you? They used to call him Swamiji at that time. So, but then, the boy wasn't a devotee yet, and he wasn't really, so he took his drum at the end of the night, but they asked, can you please bring it back tomorrow morning? We're going to make a record. So they said, yeah, right, he's going to come back. But sure enough, he came back. And that's the amazing drumming you hear on that record, So it was like that. And so then what happened, just to see how that first Ratha Yatra came about. So Prabhupada, Mukunda, Mukunda Goswami, he was here when I came in 89. He was a resident sannyasi here. He was a real pioneer. He found that 26 2nd Avenue. And he was a professional musician, which is important. So he was left, they got initiated, and he was leaving. He was married to Yamuna's sister, Janaki. And he told Prabhupada as he was going out the door, I'd like to go to India, but I'm going to stop in San Francisco first. So Prabhupada said, it would be nice if you could start a center there in San Francisco. So Mukunda said, somehow his plan to go to India was just wrecked, So he met Shyama Sundar and Malati, and anyways, the whole story. And he took them, and they did this mantra rock dance, where Shyama Sundar was great. He was able to meet these people, professional organizers. He himself was great. And they had all the big bands of the day, and Prabhupada flew out, and he came into the airport, and everyone just chanted Hare Krishna, all these hippies with their crazy clothes, and they're all chanting Hare Krishna, and they bowed down, and he was just amazed. Wow, he didn't even do it, So that's how that center started. Now, in the course of that, one day Malati came in, and I hope I'm not, please understand, in those days, everyone was doing this. There was a big barrel, and there was a lot of connection with India, because Indian music and Ravi Shankar and George Harrison, So that was also part of the elements of the summer love. So she went out, and there was a big barrel full of these little wooden figurines. And it said imported from India, so she was intrigued. And she slipped one into her bag. A little tiny thing, you know. That happened. Yeah, shoplifting. Anyway, so she came back and she showed it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada bowed down to the little figurine. I said, what is this? You know, he said, are there some others? And yes, he said, get the others too. So she went back, got the two others. So they had the first little mini, Jagannath deities. And he looked at Shyamasundar, can you make big ones of these? He was a professional carver, you know, he was a great woodworker. So that's how the first deities started in ISKCON. And Shyamasundar, he was still smoking cigarettes, you know, and Prabhupada came up to see how he was doing. He had one cigarette on I think, Baladev's head. He was, you know, as he was working on that. So he said, that's not so good, you know. So Prabhupada, he realized how difficult it was to quit cigarettes. You know, so he said, try to do, smoke one less each day, you know, and do it like that. And eventually he was able to do it. So those deities, after the Ratha Yatra, they were installed in the temple. They were the first deities. That's how Jagannath came to America, you know. And it's always, you know, he's always smiling broadly, you know. And it's just like he has this special feature where he's inviting everyone to participate. It's really the mood of the Hare Krishna movement. And go out, chant and dance, you know, show everyone, invite everyone, and bless everyone. So this is Jagannath. And just a little bit about the mood of Jagannath. If you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll find that Lord Chaitanya, he made his headquarters after traveling so much when in the Anchalila. He set up in Jagannath Puri. He didn't go anywhere for like 12 years, I think. And he had his intimate devotees there. And when the Ratha Yatra would come around, all of his devotees from Bengal would come up. They would walk. They would chant and dance all the way from Bengal to Puri, like a few hundreds of miles, right? And it would be a great reunion, and Lord Chaitanya loved all of them. You know, he would greet them all, give them garlands when they came into town, and they would stay, several months there, and then go back. So then Lord Chaitanya, now chapter 13 of the Madhya Lila, if you don't have the book on your shelf, you can read it online, database.io. You can read all the books without the latest revisions, but you'll be able to read the books. And chapter 13 describes Lord Chaitanya's dancing in Ratha Yatra and the whole mood he's in. Now this is important because Prabhupada also taught us that when he explained who Jagannath is. And that is, when you read the Krishna book, you read Lord Chaitanya's 10th canto, you'll find that there was a solar eclipse at one point, and in order to observe the solar eclipse and get the benefits, they went to Kurukshetra, which is a holy place. That's where the Battle of Kurukshetra was fought. And there were all these lakes that were formed when Parashuram killed the evil Kshatriyas so long. And so that's 7 of them, I think. So they went. So not only did Krishna go with his whole entourage, including the queens, from Dwarka, but when the residents of Vrindavan heard that Krishna was going to be there, they all visited also. It's not that far from Vrindavan, you see. So it was a big reunion. You can imagine how emotional that was. So the gopis all came, and they were very happy to see Krishna and Balaram and everything, but it just wasn't the same, you know. He was there as a prince, you know, with all of the rattling of the chariots and everything, you know. So they wanted to bring him back to Vrindavan. You know, and this is a central mood. Radharani expresses that. There's this verse that she speaks to a friend. See if you can understand. Some of you speak Sanskrit. Priyak soyam Krishna sahachati kuru cheta militas tatahang saradha tadidhamma bhayo sangama sukham tatapyanta kelan madhudamanoli panchamadushe manomeka rindi pulanapapanaya spahayati. I don't know if any of you can. Number one, if you know Sanskrit, and 2, if you could understand my New York accent. They say that I said Sanskrit with a New York accent. Anyway, so what the word means is, Radharani is speaking to one of her friends. She's standing there in Kurukshetra, and she says, my dear friend, Sahachari, one who's your companion. Priyak Soya, my beloved, this is the same beloved Krishna. that I knew back in Vrindavan. I'm the same Radha and he's the same Krishna, but it's just not the same. You know, because, so I want to take him back to the bank of the Yamuna and hear him play that fifth note on the flute. Now, I've been researching that. Is a fifth note or a fifth raga or whatever it is, but that comes up again and again. So this mood of bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan, the gopis with their love, the ropes of their love, bringing it back. Lord Chaitanya enacted that every year in Puri. That was his mood. He was in the mood of Radharani. He's Krishna in the mood of Radha. Right? That's who Lord Chaitanya is. So he was in that mood, and the other devotees got in that mood. And you know, to take Krishna back to Vrindavan. And that you know, this is really the inner ultimate teaching of Lord Chaitanya about the rasa, you know, the highest rasa, is loving Krishna in separation and hankering for his association in Vrindavan. And so that you'll read about that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is why the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the supreme book about Lord Chaitanya's life, because it's his life and teachings in detail. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, you get some very wonderful descriptions of Leela you don't see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the early Leela and Madhya Leela in more detail. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you get that sometimes in outline form, but you get the ultimate philosophy expressed in the most wonderful way. And Krishnadas Kaviraj, it's not an accident that he got that name Kaviraj. What does it mean, Mahima? Kaviraj.
King of poets.
Yes, king of poets. Now, he's not the only one with that, you know, but because he's such a great poet. I'll give you a sample. He got the name from writing the Govinda Lilamrita when he first went to Vrindavan. He was young when he did that. Well, he lived there, but then when he was elderly, because he was such a pure devotee and such a wonderful poet, the devotees begged him to write the Chaitanya Charitamrita and give us more detail about the Antya Leela, where they were able to discover when Raghunath Das Goswami came, and 3 hours a day he would sit in Radhakund and tell them about what he had witnessed. He was living in Puri for the whole time. And also the notebooks of Srup Damodar and others, you know. So Krishnadas Kaviraj, he was an old man at that time. He even says at the beginning of the Madhya Leela, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it, so I'll write this one chapter as a little summary of Antya Leela. You look at the beginning of Madhya Leela, you'll see that. But luckily for everyone, he covered somewhat and he was able to finish the book. So this is, you know, it's not exactly all about Jagannath, but in one sense it is about Jagannath. Because that mood of bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan and you know, and the worshipable relationship of what Lord Chaitanya showed, the highest relationship, which is, as he expressed in the Shikshasaka, you know, nadanang nadanang nasundaring kapitang vajagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktira hoituki tvahi. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. Now that is the ultimate mood of pure devotion. Not wanting anything for oneself. There's this wonderful little phrase, which you won't hear, I don't think, you probably haven't heard it, even if you listen to a lot of ISKCON devotees lecture. And it summarizes the whole epitome of bhakti that is taught by the Goswamis, by Lord Chaitanya, by Prabhupada. And I'll just share it with you, and then I'll describe what it means. Bhajaniya parama purusha sukha matra swasukatvam. This is a Sanskrit phrase from one of the Sandarbhas. Now the Sandarbhas are philosophical treatises written by Jiva Goswami, another one of the 6 Goswamis. And he describes in detail the science of bhakti in these six treatises called the Shat Sandarbha. This, I'm not sure which one this is from, Prabhupada doesn't say. But what the meaning is, it's a very simple meaning, but it's a challenge to us. So Bhajaniya Paramapurusha means the supreme person, Krishna, God, who is worshipable. Bhajaniya is the worship of bhajan or bhakti. Paramapurusha Sukha Matra. Only the happiness of that Paramapurusha, Swasukatvam, is where I'll find my happiness. You see? To have an exclusive situation where the only pleasure you're looking for is to give Krishna pleasure. If Krishna is happy, I'm happy, regardless of what my other situation would be. Now that's a very high conception. But that's actually what is taught by Rupa Goswami and their followers. And you see, now, and practically speaking, we see that this was Prabhupada's mood. I mean, what the austerities he went through in order to do what he did. I mean, can you imagine? He had no money, you know. He had like 12 rupees to his name, which couldn't even exchange in New York. Luckily, he was able to sell a set of his 3 first Bhagavatams to the captain for $20, so he had $20. How long would that go in New York today? Or even back in '66. But he was determined, you know, do or die. You know, he was like, and he almost did. He had 2 heart attacks on the ocean. And even you can see the miracles that happen. So he has these 2 heart attacks, and he writes in his Jaladuta diary, you know, he said, I knew that if I had another one, I'd be goner, you know. But then he said, yes, I had a dream, and Krishna came to me in the dream. And he said, don't worry, I'm going to take charge of the boat now. So Prabhupada woke up, he didn't have another heart attack. And now, this is now he's in the Atlantic. He's in the Atlantic Ocean in September. That's the middle of hurricane season, you know? Yeah. And so there's always something blowing up in there, you know. But there was like, this was smooth as silk the whole way across the ocean till he got to Boston and then came down to New York. And the captain was traveling with his wife. You know, he had his wife with him. And she joked with Prabhupada. She said, can you please come back with us? Because we never had such a smooth crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. You know what I mean? And then, you know, the austerities underwent. Not only then, you know, I mentioned he had another, you know, heart attack or stroke and everything. And he thought he was going to pass away. That's why he went to Vrindavan. You know, he said, also I'll get treatment there, better treatment. But the devotees described, they were all writing to him, please come back, Maharaj, Swamiji, you know, because there would be no movement, and no question of it growing without him, you know. So the pull, you know, the emotion, so he came back in December of '67, I think, and you can imagine how overjoyed the devotees all were, you know. And Prabhupada was able to travel, you know, for 12 years all around the world, and build that Bombay temple with all the opposition to it, the Vrindavan temple. There was, you know, that was also miraculous, you know, getting the land. You probably don't know that, you know, I mean, they bought the land, but still, they might have lost the land. And finally it came down to a lottery. Jamuna, there was this other lady who had some preaching going on who wanted the land. And so I said, well, okay, we can't choose between. So I have in my bag two pieces of paper. One says yes, one says no. And Ramuna, you pick out of the bag, and whatever it says there, you'll either have the land or not have the land. If it's yes, it's yours. And if it's no, then Radharani doesn't want you to have it. Yes. That's how close they came to not having that. And even after getting the land, you know, we just heard yesterday Prabhupada was meditating on cement. He was dreaming of cement because the cement was being restricted, or they were cheating. They were selling us defective cement, you know. And this is India, 1975. They had some Americans in charge of it. They don't know anything, you know. So somehow or other it got built. I was very fortunate to be there for the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple. I won't go into that story. It's a total miracle. At that time, I was part of the players. We had a troupe of players in New York. At Broadway, we had 2 Broadway actors join, Lohitaksha and Rasagya. And they were part of the players. So they all went. We all went to, and we were putting on plays, you know. And I was part of the players, not as an actor, but as a musician. I would play background music on my flute. I played the flute. That's one of the reasons I got interested in Krishna consciousness. Because when I saw the picture of God with the flute, I said, oh, well, that's very interesting. I play the flute. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But Ratha Yatra, hopefully we can do this and maybe more, you know, in future years, get back to doing a cart. We have a cart. I think we still have a cart. But whatever you do, don't miss the LA Ratha Yatra. Anyone who's within range, try to get there for that. It's always the first Sunday in August, unless that's an Ekadashi. Then they postpone it a week. But it rarely is an Ekadashi. So hopefully it'll be warmer by then. You never know these days. You know. Any questions or comments so we can proceed with our program tonight? Yes, Prabhu. Who has the mic? Can give him a mic. There is mine.
So those little figurines, they ended up at that store in San Francisco. What was it, Pier 1 Imports or something?
I forgot.
So they must have gotten there before Srila Prabhupada did.
Probably.
And we don't hear any kind of stories about them being anywhere else in America. So
Are you saying it was a miracle?
I'm saying that I think Lord Jagannath was there waiting for Srila Prabhupada to come.
I'm not going to bet against it. There's all kinds of amazing things, even in our own little personal lives, you know. That's it. Boy,
Just like in London, one man was going to establish a Radha Krishna temple,
yeah,
but Radharani came with a damaged finger.
yeah.
Oh. So then Prabhupada came, and he thought, oh, maybe I'll donate them, you know, quote unquote, I'll donate them to this Swamiji,
Mm.
you know. And so Srila Prabhupada went there and practically kidnapped them, you know.
I know.
So it could be that Radharani wanted to be captured by Srila Prabhupada and sacrificed her own finger.
I think you should write a play. I'll edit it. Oh, Krishna.
I think these things are going on.
Yeah. Anyway, it's definitely supernatural. You know, it's like, okay, we understand there's God, Krishna. We believe in Krishna. Therefore, these things are possible, more than possible, likely. It's definitely not by chance. Nothing happens by chance. That's part of our philosophy. Is that right at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavatam. I was just reading this. You know, there's a wonderful chapter 5 of the first canto. And one thing you should remember, that Prabhupada, at least he said this, that he didn't know how many more books he was going to be able to write. So he put everything into that first canto. You can actually find a full program of Krishna consciousness there. And not only did Prabhupada do that, but the first canto, chapter 2, text 6 through 21, is a complete lesson in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada has beautiful purports. And I was thinking that Vyasadeva, he said, these Kali Yugas, they're not going to get through 18,000 verses, many of them, you know, it's too long. But I'm going to write that, but I'll put the whole essential philosophy right there at the beginning. If they just get through 2 chapters, they'll have it there. And Prabhupada would speak on those verses so many times. And I thought in I don't know when it was, mid-90s, why don't we make a book out of this? Some of you who know, familiar with the canon that we have, all of the books that we have. We have the teachings of Queen Kunti. We have the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. We even have the teachings of Prahlad. It was a little pamphlet that came out. And the format of those books is very simple, because Kapila Dev has his teachings at the end of the 3rd canto. I think beginning chapter 25, and it goes on for maybe 6 chapters. And Prabhupada would speak on those verses, and it was all recorded. So we have Prabhupada's recordings on those verses, and we have his purports, and we have the verses themselves. And so this wasn't my idea, but I said, oh, let's make a book out of this. This is a whole lesson. And Prabhupada approved. That was very important. He approved, yes, you can do that. So that's how the teachings of Queen Kunti came along. Prabhupada loved those prayers. He recorded them all, and he would speak on them, a lot. And they're also, there's a beginning, middle, and end, so to speak. There's logic to them. So we have the teachings of Queen Kunti and teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, and we have Dharma, the way of transcendence, which is, I thought that would be an attractive title, and it is in India. So that book is distributed mostly in India. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that all of and part of the what I was going to explain is this verse describes in the instructions of Narada Muni to Vyasadeva for writing the Bhagavatam. The whole story is that Vyasadeva, he wrote down all the Vedas and the Puranas, and of course the Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. He wrote that. And after writing all of these things, he was still dissatisfied. Somehow, I think I missed something, So Narada Muni, his spiritual master, came and he said, what's the matter, my dear Prabhu? Something like that, that's in there. And he said, well, I just don't feel, that there's something missing. And so Narada Muni said, yes, because you haven't written a book that wholly and solely deals with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the process of devotion and the ultimate philosophy and all of these things. You've written other books. Who can argue? Mahabharata is invaluable. It has the Bhagavad Gita in it. But it has so many other things. I'll tell you a little vignette, and I'm sorry, I'm losing track. Okay. The BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, which I've worked for the last 50 years, there was an idea after finishing the Bhagavatam that we would do the Mahabharata. And so Vidyananda Das Goswami, who had become pretty expert in Sanskrit at that point, translated the Adi Kanda, I think, the first part, which has 60, 70 parts to it. It's pretty, And I was going through, and editing, And I came across a chapter, and it was describing not Svargaloka, but Nagaloka. It's snakes, right? You may not know this. There's a planet below us, which is just run by snakes. Vasuki, I think, is in charge, and all these things. All right, so this is Mahabharata. They're going to give details, and they started naming the main snakes there, pages of names. And I was saying, I can see why Vyasadeva thought that maybe he could write a more concise book, with just. So really, I'm going to worry about the diacritics and the names of these snakes now, and I'm going to, So we ended up not publishing it. But the point is that there's so much in the Karma Kanda that just how to go to heaven and all these sacrifices has nothing to do with bhakti as we know it. In fact, it's deviating from bhakti. Krishna says, don't worship the demigods, So the chapter 5, he's instructing Vyasadeva in writing, and he has one verse that Prabhupada would often quote, and it's relevant to what we're talking about. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatamapoyadha talabhyate dukkha vadanyutak sukham kalena sarvata gabhira rangasa. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovite. One should strive. An intelligent human being should strive what you have not achieved by going up and down the planets and up and down the species, all these millions of births. You see? Because it doesn't make any sense to strive for more sense gratification and everything. Because it's all programmed in from your previous life. You're going to enjoy a certain number of things, and you're going to have to suffer a certain number of things. So there's no point in trying to readjust that. It's locked in from your karma. Even though it looks like, oh, I worked so hard, now I can enjoy. Yeah, that was part of your karma to work so hard, and in doing so, you committed more sins, you'll suffer again later. So rather, one should strive for what you haven't experienced going up and down the planets and species. And what's that? Bhakti. That's Krishna, you see? Getting out of the whole thing, and birth and death, and going back to Godhead. That's the point. And therefore, all of the writings, and even the Vedic writings, Karma Kanda, how you can go to heaven, perform this sacrifice, do this, is actually, as he said, and our good friend B.A. Ashram Swami likes to emphasize this point, it's like a pilgrimage for crows, what is it? How does it start? Naibod Vijay. No, not Naibod. Say again. Nayadvachas chitta padan. Yeah, thank you. My scholar here, she knows. She's been in the movement longer than me. Nayadvachas chitta padang hare yasho jagat pravitram praganita karachid. Tadvaya samtirtam ashanti manasan nayatra hangsan hidamanti shikshaya. So those words, which may be very nicely composed literarily in Sanskrit or English, Shakespeare, whatever you find, but do not deal with bhakti, with Krishna, with all of these things, are just like a pilgrimage for crows. That's a polite way of saying a garbage heap. That's where the crows go. They have a ball. You see a crow around here, but I bet inland, when you get to the landfills, you'll probably find a lot more crows, right? So, in other words, he's not, maybe he is, saying that all this other stuff you wrote was just a waste of time. Now you should really write your opus, your final opus, Meditate, you're a pure devotee, meditate, Krishna will reveal to you, and he meditated. And then he wrote the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam, from the very beginning, Dharma Projatakaita Botra. Here in this Bhagavatam, all cheating dharmas, because dharma, you can be, you have so many rules and regulations, and you go, But what is the dharma, artha, kama, moksha? Those four things. Dharma leads to artha. Oh, I can make some money. For what? Kama. I can satisfy myself. And then after I get sick of dharma, artha, kama, dharma, which means also birth, old age, disease, and death, then I'll look for moksha. But that's also selfish. I want to be free from birth, old age, and death. And as Prahlad says, mostly they just wander out in the Himalayas somewhere. They don't have any determination to help others become liberated. I'm going to be liberated. That's another kind of sense gratification. Prahlad says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay in the big cities and try to give them you, O Lord Nrsingadev, give them Krishna. So that's the mood of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta did. He left Mayapur, right? And he went to Calcutta to start the Gaudiya Math. Prabhupada left Radha Damodar temple, Vrindavan, come to New York to start ISKCON. Wasn't easy amongst these mlechas and yavanas, you can imagine. So that's the ultimate, and that will make Krishna happy. That even though it may be some external suffering on our part, but if we take some austerity to give Krishna to others, then help the Ratha Yatra or participate in Ratha Yatra. And now we have the marathon. Sponsor some books, distribute them yourself, give them away, or something. Then you'll find yourself in bliss. Okay. I think we have to adjourn because it's 6:59 and we have one more kirtan. And then there's something else. I forget what else is going to... Oh, yes, the feast. Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. I'll announce that we have this book marathon still going on in the month of December. So many of you have helped by either distributing books yourself, getting books from the temple, going out to different places, Balboa Park, colleges, the Indian stores, other places where people may be interested, and sharing these books. We're still doing that. If you'd like to get involved, you can see me, Balaram, Govardhan, Dvijamani, any of the brahmacharis. Also, because some are more shy or busy, you can also sponsor books, and then the brahmacharis will go out and distribute those books which you sponsor. So the information, there's some information here. If you'd like to get involved, you can find me or any of the brahmacharis and speak with us after dinner, after prasadam. One other thing is that tonight's feast has been sponsored by Natwarlal Chauhan. Where is Natwarlal Prabhu? I'm not seeing. Yes, Natwarlal Prabhu. Is Paresh also here? No. Okay, but Natwarlal Prabhu and family, they are sponsoring the feast in honor of Sureka Chauhan. Thank you very much. So tonight's feast has been sponsored. We don't have to buy any tickets in the gift shop. Thank you very much. We'll just chant Hare Krishna. We'll just chant Hare Krishna in honor of Sureka Mataji. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, Natwarlal Prabhu. Now, there's one other announcement, is that, as people know, it is Dravida Prabhu's 77th birthday. We've been celebrating all weekend. And so once more, Swati, Mataji, and Kunal and their kids, they made some cakes, some very healthy cakes. We've been trying to give him very opulent, rich, sugary cakes. But as you know, he's very moderate in his eating, in his prasadam taking. And so Swati and kids made some cakes with just dates and oats and whole wheat flour and so on, some very healthy cakes. So they'll bring that out, and we'll sing Hare Krishna to you. I think they're coming any moment. Now, where are the candles? Also, all the kids who made cards for Dravida Prabhu, you can bring your cards if any other kids have cards. Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna, dear Dravida Prabhu, Hare Krishna to you. And as he requests, he wants us to continue. May you never take birth again, may you never take birth again, may you never take birth again in this material world. Haribol! That last part might seem a little grim. The whole idea is we want him and we're happy for him to go back to Krishna, back to Goloka. So.
Let's go all back together.
Yes, we'll all go back together. We'll all go back together. Now, here, you can, I suspect you won't blow out the candles. You can make a wish and wave out the candles. And then we have a knife if you'd like to do the cutting. And then we'll have kirtan. Yeah. Yes, and then the kids made you birthday cards. And a little bit, and a little bit. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's okay. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Okay, as we cut and distribute the cake, we'll now rise and we'll have kirtan before we serve out prasadam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.